We're going to move to the Photoshop interface when you have first opened up your new document. Again, we used a standard print setting of 8.5 by 11 inches, 300 ppi, and CMYK color setting, and we're in a portrait orientation. The first thing that you want to do, as you can see, there's toolbars here. Okay. There are panel menus over here. And then at the top of the screen is the main menu. Okay, so these are the main components that you want to look at when you see the workspace or the interface. One of the best things to do is always either save your workspace for the projects that you're constantly working on, or have some default workspaces that you like to use. For the sake of my demonstrations and our instruction, I usually like the either the print or the paint workspaces. And where you find those are under Window, scroll to Workspace or hover on Workspace, and then you can move over to follow the arrow. You can do Essentials Default. 3D we won't be using, motion we won't be using, but painting, photography, and sometimes graphic and web. For some of our early projects, we'll be working on painting in Photoshop, so I'm going to go ahead and show you that interface right now. I click on painting, the whole entire interface resets, and I get all these panels and tools open that I didn't necessarily have before. Just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to show you what the default workspace looks like. Looks like this. So if you ever get in a situation where you're not really sure where your tools are, or something has disappeared from your workspace, or it's a little confusing, you can go ahead and you can just go to default, and you will end up with this look, and you can navigate from there. Okay? So what I'm going to do is go back to that painting workspace. Okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit, first off, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is in the toolbar, and then what we can expect from the panels over here. Okay? Again, at the top menu, you're going to see the main Photoshop menu. So just where you could quit Photoshop and some plugin additions if you wanted those. We don't use that often. Like I said in the first tutorial, this is where you can open a new file, close a file. You can also export when you're done, and then import from your other devices as well, or link with, let's say, other programs that you're using. So Bridge, Behance, so on and so forth. Here are some of the edit commands once you have something on the document working, and we'll deal with that at a later date. Image is image adjustments. So again, image size, canvas size, rotation. This has to do with photo adjustment. This you can actually even change the color mode if you want to, if you weren't correct in the beginning. So there's a lot that you can do here. If you didn't get it right in the setup, you can do it here instead. We'll talk about layers later, but they are in the panels, but they're also in the bar up top as well. Apologies for moving quickly. I'm using my stylus, and sometimes it kind of it gets a little wonky as it moves through the lists. Type, again, we'll get into this later. That's a specialty menu. Selections, also a tool, and that tool is sitting over here and has its commands embedded here, but also at the top. These are filters for kind of 3D effects or fancy effects. 3D, that's also for 3D modeling. We won't be using this as much in 250, but this is where the menu can be found if you are moving on to a 3D project. View has to do with your screen, so zooming 100%, 200% if you have print size, how to see the rulers and guides. So view always has to do with page setup navigation, zooming, not zooming, so on and so forth. And again, window has to deal with the workspace layout, and then also activating what's in the panels. So you see the check marks here, 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 here are items that can be found over here. So if you were working with something and it disappeared, you can always check in Window and see if the check mark is next to it, and then you can bring it back up. Okay? So that's the top menu bar. Over here is the working toolbar. Again, up in the menu bar, some of the commands for these tools do exist. Not all of them, but some of them. The only thing, we're going to have some other tutorials that go into these in more detail, of course, project by project. But the first thing that I want you to notice are some of the commands on how you can set this up for your efficiency. Here where these double arrows are, you can click on those and you can stack your tools if you feel like that is more efficient for you. Or you can press on it again and you can make it a long row if that makes more sense for you as well. I'm gonna stack it because it's a little easier for me to see. Here where the 3 ellipses are more tools that you can add to the toolbar if you want to use them. So here you can see that one of the tools that I use is perspective cropping, but there's all these other tools here that I can press on and add to the toolbar if I would like. Okay, so if there's something that you want that you can't find, you can always press on the ellipses, go to Edit Toolbar, and you can add them extra tools kind of moving across if you would like. Okay, you can see the toolbar has these items. If you want to add these, you drag them over and then you'll see them in this long list. Okay. Again, just to go over some of the main ones that you're going to be using in the beginning, this one here is a move, so you can select on an object and move it around. Lasso, that's for selections. This also is a selection tool, a marquee. It can make shapes, invisible shapes, but also select certain areas. This is for cropping. This is for brush, pencil, and then eyedropper. Okay, and then this is a mixer brush or a wet brush. The other thing to notice too is that there's a little tiny arrow next to all the tools that if you press on it, you get a sub-menu. And some of them are much larger than others. For example, the rectangular marquee has elliptical marquee. The quick selection tool, or this one here, has a magic wand. Lasso has a different kind of tool underneath, so on and so forth. So if you see that underneath a tool, that means extra tools are embedded underneath. Typography has a long list. Just a second. Sorry, I'm spinning for a moment. Pressed on typography and it has wanted to crash. Horizontal type and vertical type. Actually, if I go to this menu, Edit Toolbar, you'll see that there's going to be some more type here. Masking, horizontal type masking, so on and so forth. And then actually this perspective crop, if I wanted to, I could put underneath the regular crop tool. So you can kind of adjust those things, again, in the editing mode to get the different tools that you want. This is the swatch menu here. Again, in later tutorials, we're going to use these color swatches more, but this is where you find them. This will be the default black and white, and that also is used in masking modes. Usually this one, the swatch that is in front, is the active swatch, so the color that you're currently using to fill a shape or load a brush. If you need it to be different, so for example, so this would be the fill and this would be the outline. If you need that reversed, you can switch them in that way. Okay. I'm going to move over to this one over here. So this is the toolbar, and this is the panel bar. Okay, but you just always want to remember the difference here. Again, when you press on a tool, the command bar, which is right here, so this is the main menu, these are the commands, will change based on the tool that you're using. You notice when I press on this, I have the tool itself, show transform controls, and then various things that move objects around, because this is a move tool or a transformation tool. Versus when I press on the brush, okay, I have the brush, but then also this kind of blob for the brush size, a mode which is asking me, you can see how I want to blend that brush with other layers. The opacity, that wasn't with the move tool, that's only for the brush. Flow, that has to do with brushes, smoothing, etc. Okay, and there's our design tools right here. So you can see the tools relate to what's happening with the commands here. Now, if I move to the side, this is a little bit different. This is a panel menu. Okay, so this is where I house my swatches. So if I'm drawing with a brush, this is where I find the colors I might be using. For example, if I go down that CMYK color, like I said, that was the preset, I can find a range of colors there. Here, I can find a lot of brushes or a wide range of brushes and also the sizes, the texture, so on and so forth. So general brushes, dry media brushes, big range in there, and then wet media brushes also. And then last but not least is the layers menu, which is heavily used. It's very important in Photoshop for blending modes. We are going to get into that in more detail at a later date, but this is where you find it, and layers are very important to be used. The background layer, which is the first layer, is always going to be locked. To unlock it, all you have to do is double click on it, press OK, and then you can draw, move, edit everything on the bottom layer. You kind of want to get in the habit of doing that because it's always locked when you start, so you need to double click on it to get it moving. With all of these panels, if you want to collapse them, all you have to do is press this little double arrow, and then this entire panel menu will collapse. Again, there's more tools here that have to do with painting, but as we're working on some various projects, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of those. And that's the basics of the Photoshop interface.